The heavy bag swayed under my fists like a pendulum counting down to Judgment Day. Each punch sent vibrations through the concrete floor of my garage, where I'd carved out this small sanctuary from the polished perfection of our suburban home. Sweat dripped from my forehead as I worked through combinations, jab, cross, hook, the rhythm keeping my mind sharp and my body ready for whatever life threw at me. That's when I heard Jennifer's voice, drifting through the thin wall separating my workshop from the kitchen. She was on her Bluetooth again, that musical laugh of hers floating through the air like expensive perfume. The same laugh that used to make my chest tighten with affection now made my jaw clench. "Oh, Richard, you're terrible," she giggled into her headset. "No, Tom's in the garage playing Rocky again. He won't hear anything." Playing Rocky. That's what she called my boxing routine, like it was some childish game instead of the one thing that kept me sane after 12-hour shifts at the construction site. I paused my workout, wrapping my hands around the bag to stop its motion, and listened. "The doctor confirmed it yesterday," Jennifer continued, her voice dropping to what she probably thought was a whisper. "Triplets. Can you believe it? I haven't told Tom yet. I'm waiting for the right moment." My stomach dropped like I'd taken a shot to the solar plexus. Triplets. We'd been trying for kids for 3 years, and now suddenly she was pregnant with 3 at once. The timing felt off, especially considering how many late nights she'd been pulling at the law firm lately. I know, she was saying. "It's complicated, but we'll figure it out. We always do." The garage door between us might as well have been made of paper. I could picture her perfectly, leaning against the granite countertop in her designer workout clothes, the ones that cost more than I made in a week, twirling her blonde hair around her finger the way she did when she was nervous or excited. I unwrapped my hands slowly, trying to process what I'd just heard. Triplets, with Richard Blackwood, her boss at Henderson, Blackwood and Associates, the same Richard Blackwood who'd been playing the devoted family man and community pillar for the past decade, the one everyone assumed was gay because he'd never remarried after his divorce. The kitchen went quiet, and I heard Jennifer's heels clicking across the hardwood floor toward the garage. I quickly grabbed a towel and started wiping down my gloves, trying to look like I'd been focused on my workout the entire time. "Tom?" She pushed through the door, her face glowing with what I now realized wasn't just post-workout radiance. "I have amazing news." Before we deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I turned to face my wife of 8 years, this woman I'd worked double shifts to put through law school, who'd climbed the ladder at one of the city's most prestigious firms while I built the foundation that kept our life stable. She looked beautiful, as always, perfectly put together even in her exercise clothes, not a hair out of place despite claiming she'd just finished yoga. "What's up, Jen?" I kept my voice neutral, curious. "I'm pregnant." She paused for dramatic effect, her green eyes sparkling. "With triplets." I let the towel fall from my hands, making sure my expression showed the right amount of shock and joy. "Are you serious? Triplets?" 3 babies, Tom. Can you believe it?" She rushed into my arms, and I held her, breathing in her familiar scent while my mind raced through calculations. When was the last time we'd been intimate? 6 weeks ago? 8? And she was far enough along for a doctor to confirm triplets? "This is incredible," I said, pulling back to look at her face. "When did you find out?" "Yesterday. I wanted to surprise you." Her smile faltered slightly. "You are happy, right? I know we talked about starting small, but of course I'm happy." I kissed her forehead, tasting the salt of my own sweat. "This is the best news ever. We'll need to start planning right away. Cribs, college funds, a bigger house maybe." "Let's not get ahead of ourselves," she said quickly. "We have time to figure all that out." But I was already figuring things out, just not in the way she expected. As Jennifer chattered about doctor appointments and nursery colors, I was calculating timelines and remembering the credit card statements I'd been meaning to ask her about. The hotel charges, the expensive dinners for two during her supposed solo work meetings. I should probably call my sister, I said. Lisa's going to flip when she hears she's getting 3 nieces or nephews at once. Actually, let's keep this between us for now, Jennifer said, her hand touching my arm. Just until we get past the first trimester. You know how these things can be unpredictable. Unpredictable. That was one word for it. Sure, whatever you think is best. I picked up my towel again, needing something to do with my hands. I'm going to finish up here and grab a shower. Okay, I'm meeting Amanda for lunch. Then I have that late meeting with Richard about the Morrison case. She was already backing toward the door, eager to escape now that she'd delivered her news. Another late meeting? You've been working a lot of overtime lately. Partnership track, remember? Richard says I'm his top candidate for the next opening. She blew me a kiss. Don't wait up. These strategy sessions can run pretty late. After she left, I stood alone in my garage, surrounded by the tools and equipment that represented my real world, the one where actions had consequences and lies eventually crumbled under the weight of truth. The heavy bag hung motionless, waiting for the next round. I walked to my workbench and opened the metal toolbox where I kept important papers. Underneath the warranty information for my drill set, I found what I was looking for. The credit card statement from 2 months ago that Jennifer thought she'd hidden. The one with charges from the Riverside Hotel downtown, always on the same nights as her late meetings with Richard. 3 babies. Richard Blackwood's babies, if my suspicions were correct. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found Lisa's number. My sister worked in IT at Henderson Blackwood and Associates, had been there for 5 years, long enough to know where all the office bodies were buried. She'd mentioned Richard's reputation before, how he wasn't quite as committed to his bachelor lifestyle as he pretended to be. Hey, Lisa, it's Tom. Got a minute to talk? Sure, what's up? You sound weird. Jennifer's pregnant, triplets. Silence on the other end, then a low whistle. Triplets? Wow, that's unexpected. Yeah, unexpected is right. Listen, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be straight with me. Richard Blackwood, is he really the family man he pretends to be? Another pause, longer this time. Tom, what's this really about? Just answer the question, Lisa. Please. Richard's not gay, if that's what you're asking. Never has been, despite what people around here assume. He's been very careful about his image since the divorce, but there have been rumors. Why are you asking? I stared at the hotel receipt in my hand, the pieces of the puzzle clicking into place with mechanical precision. No reason, just curious about Jennifer's boss, making sure she's working for good people. Tom, I've got to go, Lisa. Thanks for the info. I ended the call and walked back to the heavy bag. This time, when I hit it, I wasn't thinking about staying in shape or relieving stress. I was thinking about Richard Blackwood's perfectly capped teeth and his expensive suits, and the way he'd shaken my hand at the company Christmas party, looking me right in the eye while he was sleeping with my wife. 3 babies. Jennifer's miracle pregnancy with the man she thought I was too stupid to suspect. I unwrapped my hands and headed for the house. I had some planning to do, and unlike my wife, I believed in being thorough. If Richard Blackwood wanted to play family man, I was going to make sure he got the full experience, starting with some very public recognition of his impending fatherhood. The game was about to change, and this time, I was going to be the one setting the rules. The next morning, I sat in my truck outside Henderson, Blackwood and Associates, watching the morning rush of lawyers and support staff streaming into the glass-fronted building. Jennifer had left early for a breakfast meeting, which gave me time to observe the patterns I'd been too trusting to notice before. At exactly 7:45 a.m., Richard Blackwood's black Mercedes pulled into his reserved parking spot. He stepped out, looking like he'd walked off the cover of a legal magazine, Silver hair perfectly styled, navy suit that probably cost more than my monthly salary, confident stride that said he owned the world and everything in it. At 7:52 a.m., Jennifer's white BMW arrived. She parked 3 spots away from Richard, but I noticed how she checked her reflection in the rearview mirror before getting out, smoothing her skirt and touching up her lipstick. The same routine she used to do for me when we were dating. They walked into the building separately, maintaining professional distance, but I caught the brief moment when their eyes met across the parking lot. It lasted maybe 2 seconds, but it told me everything I needed to know. I drove to the construction site where my crew was starting work on a new office complex. The irony wasn't lost on me. I spent my days building things while my marriage fell apart. But construction had taught me valuable lessons about foundations and structural integrity. When something was built on lies, it was only a matter of time before the whole thing collapsed. "You look like hell, boss," said Jake, my foreman, and one of the few people I trusted completely. We'd worked together for 6 years, and he could read my moods better than most people read books. "Just tired. Jennifer's been keeping me up with wedding planning talk." The lie came easily. I wasn't ready to share the truth with anyone yet, not until I had all the facts. "Wedding planning? You guys have been married for 8 years. "Anniversary party," I corrected quickly. "She wants to renew our vows." Jake nodded, but I could see the skepticism in his eyes. He'd met Jennifer at company barbecues and holiday parties. Like most of my crew, he found her polite but cold, the kind of woman who smiled at blue-collar workers while mentally calculating how quickly she could escape the conversation. I spent the morning losing myself in physical work, but my mind kept circling back to the problem at hand. I needed proof, real evidence that would stand up to scrutiny. Jennifer was a lawyer. She'd trained to find holes in arguments and exploit weaknesses in cases. If I was going to confront her, I needed to be absolutely certain of my facts. During lunch break, I called Lisa from my truck. "I need a favor," I said without preamble. "Tom, about yesterday." "This isn't about yesterday. I need you to check something for me. The security footage from your building's parking garage. Can you access that?" "Why would you want to see parking garage footage?" "Because I think my wife is having an affair with your boss, and I need to know for sure before I do something stupid." Silence stretched between us for nearly a minute. Lisa had always been protective of me ever since we were kids, and she used to patch up my scraped knees and lecture me about picking fights with bigger kids. "Tom, are you sure about this? Sometimes it's better not to know." "I'm sure. And I already know, Lisa. I just need proof." "Okay, I can pull footage from the last month, but I'll need a reason that won't get me fired. Let me think about this." "Thanks. And Lisa, be careful. If I'm right about Richard, he's not going to want this information getting out." After work, I stopped by Murphy's boxing gym, a converted warehouse on the south side of town where serious fighters trained and weekend warriors like me tried to pretend we still had what it took. The owner, Danny Murphy, had been a professional middleweight back in the 80s before a detached retina ended his career. Now he trained kids from the neighborhood and gave advice to anyone smart enough to listen. "You're hitting angry today," Danny observed, watching me work the heavy bag. "Angry's good for power, bad for technique. What's eating you?" I paused, catching the bag as it swung back toward me. "Hypothetical question, Danny. If someone betrayed you, really betrayed you, how would you handle it?" Danny's scarred face creased into what might have been a smile. "Hypothetically, I'd make sure they understood the consequences of their actions. But I'd be smart about it. Revenge is like boxing. It's not about throwing the hardest punch. It's about throwing the right punch at the right time. And if this hypothetical person thought they were smarter than you, thought you'd never figure out what they were doing, then they'd be underestimating their opponent. Biggest mistake you can make in the ring or anywhere else." Danny adjusted the bag's chain, his movements economical and precise. "You want my advice? Document everything. Build your case like a prosecutor. Then, when you're ready to throw your punch, make sure it counts. I worked the bag for another hour, thinking about Danny's words. Document everything, build a case, make it count. When I got home, Jennifer was in the kitchen, preparing what looked like a celebration dinner. Candles, wine, the good china we usually saved for holidays. "What's all this for?" I asked, kissing her cheek and noting the expensive perfume she was wearing. The same scent I'd noticed on my shirts after her late meetings. "I thought we should celebrate our news properly. Just the two of us before everything gets crazy with the babies." She'd made my favorite meal, steak, roasted potatoes, green beans, the same dinner she'd cooked the night she told me she'd passed the bar exam, and again when she made junior partner. Jennifer believed in marking important occasions with ritual and ceremony. "This is perfect," I said, meaning it. If this was going to be one of our last dinners as a married couple, I wanted to remember it exactly as it was. The woman I'd loved sitting across from me, candlelight flickering across her face, both of us pretending everything was normal. "I made an appointment with Dr. Patterson for next week," she said, cutting into her steak. "For the ultrasound. I thought you might want to come." "Absolutely. I want to be involved in everything." "Good. That's what I was hoping you'd say." She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Tom, I know this is a big change, bigger than we planned, but I think we can handle it. We're a good team." A good team. I almost laughed at the irony, but managed to keep my expression neutral. We are. We've always been good at supporting each other. Exactly, and with the partnership track opening up, the timing is actually perfect. The firm offers excellent maternity benefits, and Richard's been very supportive of work-life balance. Richard's a good boss? The best. He really believes in investing in his people, you know? He takes a personal interest in our success. Jennifer's eyes lit up when she talked about Richard, the same way they used to light up when she talked about our future together. "Sounds like a great guy. Maybe I should meet him properly sometime. Invite him over for dinner." Jennifer's fork paused halfway to her mouth. "Oh, that's sweet. But Richard's very private. He doesn't really socialize outside the office." "Right. Of course." I filed that information away with everything else I was learning about my wife's relationship with her boss. After dinner, Jennifer excused herself for a bath, claiming the pregnancy was making her tired. I cleaned up the kitchen and then retreated to my home office, a small room off the garage where I kept my business records and personal files. I pulled out a yellow legal pad, the same kind Jennifer used for case notes, and started writing down everything I knew. Dates, times, credit card charges, overheard phone conversations. The pattern was clear once I laid it out chronologically. Jennifer's late meetings with Richard had started 4 months ago, right around the time she began talking about partnership opportunities. My phone buzzed with a text from Lisa. "Can meet tomorrow after work. Parking level B2, northwest corner. Come alone." I texted back, "Thank you." Then I sat in my office, surrounded by the tools of my trade, invoices, contracts, blueprints for buildings that would stand long after the people who commissioned them were gone, and planned my next move. Jennifer thought she was playing chess while I played checkers. She was about to learn that I'd been studying the board more carefully than she realized. Tomorrow, I'd have proof. And then, the real game would begin. Lisa was waiting for me in the parking garage's northwest corner, a manila envelope clutched in her hands like it contained nuclear secrets. The fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows across her face, making her look older than her 32 years. "I could get fired for this," she said without preamble, handing me the envelope. "The security footage shows exactly what you think it shows." I opened the envelope and found a dozen printed screenshots, each one time-stamped and dated. Jennifer and Richard entering the parking garage separately, leaving together in his Mercedes. The timestamps corresponded perfectly with her claimed late meetings over the past 3 months. There's more, Lisa said. I checked the hotel records. Richard has a corporate account at the Riverside. Charges for a suite on the same nights your wife claimed to be working late. How did you get hotel records? Amanda Richardson in accounting used to work at the Riverside. She still has friends there. Lisa shifted uncomfortably. Tom, everyone in the office knows. They've been calling Jennifer Richards' special project for months. The humiliation hit me like a physical blow. Not only was my wife cheating, but it was office gossip. The woman I'd supported through law school, whose career I'd prioritized over my own ambitions, was being whispered about by secretaries and junior associates. There's something else, Lisa continued. Richard's divorce wasn't as amicable as people think. His ex-wife caught him cheating with a paralegal, cost him half his assets, and almost destroyed his reputation. He's been very careful since then, but apparently not careful enough. I studied the photographs, memorizing every detail. Jennifer's hand on Richard's arm as they walked to his car. The way she looked up at him, the same adoring expression she used to reserve for me. The timestamp showing them leaving the garage at 11:47 p.m. on a night she'd told me she was reviewing depositions until dawn. What are you going to do? Lisa asked. I'm going to be smart about it. Document everything, build a case, then make my move when the timing is right. Tom, be careful. Richard has a lot of influence in this city. He could make things difficult for you if he wanted to. Let him try. I'm not the one with everything to lose. I drove home with the envelope on the passenger seat, my mind already working through possibilities. Jennifer's car was in the driveway, but the house was dark except for the bedroom window. She was probably getting ready for another late meeting. I parked in the garage and sat for a moment, listening to the engine tick as it cooled. 8 years of marriage, and it had come to this. Sitting in my own garage with photographic evidence of my wife's betrayal, planning my next move like a military operation. My phone buzzed with a text from Jennifer. Working late again tonight. Don't wait up. Love you. Love you. The casual cruelty of those words hit harder than any punch I'd ever taken in Danny's gym. She was probably texting me from Richard's hotel suite, or maybe from his penthouse apartment across town. I walked into the house and poured myself 3 fingers of bourbon, then sat at the kitchen table where we'd shared dinner just 24 hours ago. The candles were still there, waxy reminders of Jennifer's performance as the loving wife celebrating our miracle pregnancy. The pregnancy. I pulled out my phone and did some quick research on multiple births and conception timing. If Jennifer was far enough along for a doctor to confirm triplets, she would have conceived at least 8 weeks ago. I grabbed my calendar and counted backward, cross-referencing with my work schedule and Jennifer's claimed late meetings. 8 weeks ago, I'd been working a double shift on the Morrison project, trying to make up for delays caused by bad weather. Jennifer had been home alone, supposedly fighting a stomach bug that kept her in bed for 3 days. The same 3 days Richard had taken off work for what his secretary had called personal time. The pieces fit together with mathematical precision. Jennifer's morning sickness hadn't been from pregnancy. It had been guilt and stress from starting her affair. The stomach bug had been her cover story for spending a long weekend with Richard, probably at some out-of-town hotel where they wouldn't be recognized. I finished my bourbon and went to my office, where I added the new information to my growing file. Dates, photographs, hotel records, witness statements from Lisa. Any prosecutor would call it a solid case of adultery, but I wasn't interested in legal remedies. Divorce courts were civilized places where lawyers argued about asset division and custody arrangements. What I had in mind was more personal. The next morning, I called in sick to work. The first time I'd used a sick day in 3 years. Instead of going to the construction site, I drove to the Riverside Hotel and parked across the street, watching the entrance. At 10:15 a.m., Richard's Mercedes pulled up to the valet stand. He stepped out, handed his keys to the attendant, and walked into the lobby like he owned the place. 20 minutes later, Jennifer's BMW arrived. She was dressed in a navy business suit that I'd never seen before, her hair styled in a way that made her look younger and more sophisticated. She handed her keys to the same valet attendant, who greeted her by name. They knew her by name at the hotel. My wife, who'd lectured me about budgeting and responsible spending, was a regular at a place that charged more per night than I made in a week. I waited in my truck, watching the hotel entrance and thinking about the conversation I'd had with Danny Murphy. Document everything. Build your case. Make it count. At 12:30 p.m. they emerged together, Richard's hand resting possessively on the small of Jennifer's back. They stood by the valet stand, talking quietly while they waited for their cars. Even from across the street, I could see the intimacy between them, the way they leaned into each other, the casual touches, the shared smiles. Jennifer's hand moved to her stomach in a protective gesture I recognized from movies and television shows. She was telling Richard about the pregnancy, sharing the news with her lover before her husband had fully processed it. Richard's reaction was immediate and telling. His face lit up with genuine joy, and he pulled Jennifer into an embrace that lasted long enough to make the valet attendant look away in embarrassment. When they separated, Richard's hand lingered on Jennifer's stomach, and I could see his lips moving in what looked like excited questions. This wasn't just an affair. This was a relationship, complete with emotional intimacy and shared dreams for the future. Jennifer hadn't just cheated on me. She'd fallen in love with someone else and was planning a life that didn't include her husband. I started my truck and drove away before they could spot me, my hands gripping the steering wheel hard enough to leave marks. The humiliation was complete now. Not only was Jennifer carrying another man's children, but she was genuinely happy about it. The glow I'd attributed to pregnancy hormones was actually the radiance of a woman in love. That evening, Jennifer came home at her usual time, carrying takeout from our favorite Thai restaurant and wearing the satisfied expression of someone who'd had a very good day. "How was your day?" she asked, setting the food containers on the kitchen counter. "Productive. Got a lot done around the house." I helped her unpack the food, noting that she'd ordered all my favorites. Guilt food, my mother would have called it. "That's great. I had a busy day too, but good busy. Richard thinks the Morrison case is going to trial, which means more billable hours and better visibility for my partnership application." Sounds like Richard's really invested in your success. "He is. I'm lucky to work for someone who believes in mentoring his staff." Jennifer opened a container of pad Thai and inhaled appreciatively. "This smells amazing. I've been craving Thai food all day." Pregnancy cravings? Must be. The doctor said that's normal with multiples, more intense everything, cravings, morning sickness, emotional swings. She looked at me with what seemed like genuine concern. "I hope you're ready for a few months of me being completely irrational." "I can handle irrational. I've been married to you for 8 years. Jennifer laughed, and for a moment, it felt like old times, like we were just a normal couple sharing dinner and talking about our day. But I knew better now. Every smile, every laugh, every casual touch was a performance designed to keep me from discovering the truth. "I scheduled the ultrasound for Friday afternoon," she said. "Dr. Patterson wants to get a baseline measurement for all 3 babies. I'll be there. Wouldn't miss it for the world." "Good. I want you involved in everything, Tom. These babies are going to change our whole lives." Our whole lives. I wondered if Jennifer had any idea how accurate that statement was, or if she was still naive enough to think she could manage both relationships indefinitely. Did she really believe she could raise Richard's children while married to me? Or was she planning to ask for a divorce once the babies were born? After dinner, Jennifer retreated to her home office to work on case files while I cleaned up the kitchen and tried to process everything I'd learned. The woman I'd married was gone, replaced by someone I barely recognized, someone capable of elaborate deception and casual cruelty. But I was changing too. The trusting husband, who'd worked double shifts to support his wife's career, was being replaced by someone harder and more calculating. Someone who understood that nice guys didn't just finish last, they got humiliated in hotel parking lots while their wives planned new lives with other men. I walked out to the garage and wrapped my hands for another session with the heavy bag. This time, I wasn't hitting it to stay in shape or relieve stress. I was training for a fight that was coming whether I wanted it or not. The only question now was when and where I'd choose to throw the first punch. Friday afternoon arrived with the weight of inevitability. I sat in Dr. Patterson's waiting room, surrounded by pregnancy magazines and couples holding hands, trying to look like an expectant father instead of a man planning the systematic destruction of his marriage. Jennifer sat beside me, radiant in a way that had nothing to do with pregnancy hormones and everything to do with the secret she thought she was keeping. She dressed carefully for the appointment, a flowing dress that accommodated her still flat stomach and heels that made her legs look endless. Even at the doctor's office, she was performing. "Mr. and Mrs. Wilson?" The nurse called our names, and we followed her down a sterile hallway to an examination room that smelled like disinfectant and broken dreams. Dr. Patterson was a woman in her 50s, with kind eyes and gentle hands, who'd been delivering babies in our city for 20 years. She greeted Jennifer warmly and shook my hand with the firm grip of someone accustomed to dealing with nervous fathers. "Congratulations on your pregnancy," she said, settling onto a rolling stool. "Triplets are rare and special. You're in for quite an adventure." "We're excited," Jennifer said, reaching for my hand. Her palm was slightly damp with nervous sweat. "A little overwhelmed but excited. That's completely normal. Let's take a look at your babies and see how they're developing." The ultrasound machine hummed to life, and Dr. Patterson squeezed gel onto Jennifer's exposed stomach. The wand moved across her skin, searching for the tiny lives growing inside her, while I watched the monitor and tried to feel something other than rage. "There's baby number 1, Dr. Patterson said, pointing to a grainy shape on the screen. "Good, strong heartbeat. And there's number 2 and number 3. All looking healthy and developing right on schedule." Jennifer's eyes filled with tears as she stared at the monitor. "They're really there, 3 little babies." "They're beautiful," I said, because that's what expectant fathers were supposed to say. And they were beautiful in the abstract way that all new life is beautiful. But they weren't mine, and pretending otherwise was becoming harder with each passing second. "Based on the measurements, I'd put you at about 10 weeks along," Dr. Patterson continued. "That means conception occurred around the middle of March. Does that sound right?" 10 weeks. I did the math quickly, remembering the weekend in March when I'd worked overtime on the Morrison project while Jennifer supposedly recovered from her stomach bug. The same weekend, Richard had taken personal time and Jennifer had been unreachable for hours at a stretch. "That sounds about right," Jennifer said, her voice steady despite the magnitude of the lie she was telling. Dr. Patterson printed several copies of the ultrasound images and handed them to us with a smile. "For the grandparents and your baby book, I'll see you again in 4 weeks for your next checkup." We walked to the parking lot in silence, Jennifer clutching the ultrasound photos like they were precious artifacts. At her car, she turned to face me, her expression soft and vulnerable. "What did you think? Seeing them for the first time?" "It was incredible," I said, meaning it in ways she couldn't understand. "Really drives home how real this is." "I know. I keep looking at these pictures and thinking about how our lives are going to change." She studied my face, searching for something. "You're okay with this, right? The timing, the number of babies, all of it?" "Why wouldn't I be okay with it?" "I don't know. You've seemed distant lately, distracted. I thought maybe you were having second thoughts about becoming a father." Distant, distracted. She was right about both, but not for the reasons she imagined. I'd been distant because every conversation felt like a performance, and distracted because I was planning her downfall while she talked about nursery colors and baby names. "I'm fine, Jen, just processing everything. This is a big change." "The biggest." She stood on her toes and kissed my cheek, her lips soft and familiar. I love you, Tom. I know I don't say it enough, but I do. I love you too. The lie came easily, automatically, but it tasted bitter in my mouth. I did love her, or at least I loved the woman I thought she was. The woman standing in front of me was a stranger wearing my wife's face. That evening, Jennifer had another late meeting with Richard. She left at 7 o'clock, kissing me goodbye and promising to be home before midnight. I waited until her taillights disappeared around the corner, then drove to Danny's gym for what I knew would be my last workout as a married man. You look different, Danny observed, watching me wrap my hands with practiced efficiency. Focused, dangerous. I found out what I needed to know. Now I'm deciding what to do about it. And what did you decide? That some fights can't be avoided. You can either take the beating or give it. Danny nodded approvingly. Smart man, but remember what I taught you about timing. The best punch is the one your opponent doesn't see coming. I worked the heavy bag for an hour, my combinations sharper and more precise than they'd been in years. Each punch was deliberate, purposeful, part of a larger strategy that was finally taking shape in my mind. Jennifer thought she was smart, keeping her affair secret while she planned her exit strategy. Richard thought he was untouchable, protected by his reputation and his position in the community. They were both about to learn that underestimating your opponent was the fastest way to lose a fight. After my workout, I drove past Richard's penthouse apartment building, a gleaming tower of glass and steel that dominated the city's skyline. Jennifer's BMW was parked in the visitor section, confirmation that her late meeting was taking place in Richard's bedroom rather than his office. I parked across the street and called Lisa. I need one more favor, I said when she answered. Tom, I've already done enough. If Richard finds out I've been helping you, he won't find out. I just need you to check something for me. Richard's calendar for Monday, specifically whether he has any public appearances scheduled. Why? Because I'm going to give him something to remember me by, and I want to make sure he has an audience. Lisa was quiet for a long moment. You're scaring me, Tom. What are you planning? Nothing illegal, nothing violent, just a conversation between two men about mutual interests. Promise me you won't do anything stupid. I promise I won't do anything stupid, but I can't promise I won't do anything permanent. I ended the call and sat in my truck, staring up at the penthouse where my wife was probably planning the rest of her life with another man. The old Tom would have driven home and pretended everything was normal, would have raised Richard's children and never said a word about the betrayal. The old Tom would have been a good sport about getting played for a fool. But the old Tom was gone, replaced by someone who understood that respect wasn't given, it was taken. And I was about to take back everything that had been stolen from me, starting with my dignity and ending with their comfortable little fantasy about keeping their secret forever. Monday was going to be very interesting. Monday morning arrived gray and drizzling, the kind of weather that made the city look tired and worn around the edges. I dressed carefully in my best suit, the charcoal gray one Jennifer had bought me for her law school graduation, and drove downtown to Henderson Blackwood and Associates. Lisa had texted me Sunday night with the information I needed. Richard had a partners meeting at 9 a.m., followed by a client presentation at 10:30. The entire senior staff would be in the main conference room, including Jennifer, who'd been invited to observe as part of her partnership development. Perfect. I parked in the visitor section of the garage and took the elevator to the 15th floor, where the firm's reception area gleamed with polished marble and understated wealth. The receptionist, a young woman with perfectly styled hair and a practiced smile, looked up as I approached her desk. Good morning, how can I help you? I'm here to see Richard Blackwood. Tom Wilson, I'm Jennifer Wilson's husband. Recognition flickered across her face. Jennifer had probably mentioned me in passing, the blue-collar husband who paid the bills while she climbed the corporate ladder. I'm sorry, Mr. Wilson, but Mr. Blackwood is in a meeting right now. Would you like to schedule an appointment? Actually, I think he'll want to see me immediately. It's about a family matter. A very urgent family matter. The receptionist's smile faltered slightly. Let me check with his secretary. She made a quick phone call, speaking in hushed tones while I stood at her desk, projecting calm confidence. After a moment, she hung up and looked at me with obvious curiosity. Mr. Blackwood will see you in 5 minutes. Please have a seat. I settled into one of the leather chairs in the waiting area and watched the morning bustle of a successful law firm. Associates hurried past with armloads of files, paralegals rushed between offices with urgent messages, and senior partners strode through the hallways with the confident bearing of people who billed their time in 6-minute increments. Mr. Wilson? A middle-aged woman in a navy suit approached me with a polite smile. I'm Margaret, Mr. Blackwood's secretary. He'll see you now. I followed her down a hallway lined with oil paintings and photographs of the firm's founding partners, past conference rooms where serious-looking people discussed important matters, to a corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view of the entire city. Richard Blackwood stood behind his desk, his silver hair perfectly styled and his expression carefully neutral. He was taller than I'd expected, with the kind of commanding presence that came from years of courtroom victories and boardroom negotiations. His handshake was firm, his smile professionally warm. Tom, what a pleasant surprise. Jennifer's told me so much about you. I'm sure she has. I settled into the chair across from his desk, noting the family photos strategically placed to show Richard with various civic leaders and community figures. I hope you don't mind me stopping by unannounced, but I wanted to discuss something important with you. Of course. What can I do for you? I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out the manila envelope Lisa had given me, placing it on Richard's desk between us. His eyes flicked to the envelope, then back to my face, his expression unchanged. I wanted to thank you personally for taking such good care of my wife. Jennifer speaks very highly of your mentoring style. Jennifer's an exceptional attorney. She has a bright future with this firm. I'm sure she does, especially considering how much personal attention you've been giving her. I leaned forward slightly, maintaining eye contact. The late meetings, the strategy sessions, the hands-on guidance, it's really above and beyond what most bosses would do. Richard's smile didn't waver, but something shifted behind his eyes. I believe in investing in my people, Tom. Jennifer has the potential to be a real asset to this firm. An asset. That's an interesting way to put it. I tapped the envelope with one finger. I brought some photographs I thought you might find interesting. Professional shots, you might say. Very clear, excellent lighting. Now Richard's composure cracked slightly. His gaze dropped to the envelope, and I could see him calculating odds and outcomes with the quick thinking that had made him successful. Tom, I think there might be some misunderstanding. No misunderstanding at all. I understand perfectly. I opened the envelope and spread the security camera screenshots across his desk like playing cards. I understand that you and my wife have been conducting your strategy sessions at the Riverside Hotel. I understand that your mentoring includes weekend getaways and intimate dinners. And I especially understand that the triplets Jennifer's carrying are the result of your very thorough guidance. Richard stared at the photographs, his face pale beneath his lawyer's tan. These don't prove anything. Jennifer and I work closely together, but our relationship is strictly professional. Strictly professional. I laughed, the sound harsh in the elegant office. Is that what you call it when you're holding her in the hotel parking lot, discussing baby names and nursery colors? You're making a serious mistake, Tom. Accusations like this could be considered harassment. I could have you arrested. Go ahead, call security. But first, let me tell you what's going to happen next. I leaned back in my chair, completely relaxed now that the moment had arrived. I'm going to walk out of this office and down the hall to that conference room where all your partners are meeting. I'm going to interrupt your client presentation and share these photographs with everyone present. Then I'm going to explain how the firm's senior partner has been conducting an affair with a married associate, potentially creating liability issues for harassment and professional misconduct. Richard's face went from pale to gray. You can't do that. It would destroy both our careers. Your career? Jennifer made her choice when she decided to sleep with her boss. But you're right about one thing. It will definitely destroy your reputation. The family man, the pillar of the community, the mentor who takes such personal interest in his female associates. How do you think that's going to play in the local legal community? What do you want? The question I'd been waiting for. I gathered up the photographs and slipped them back into the envelope, taking my time and letting the silence stretch between us. I want you to understand that actions have consequences. I want you to know that the man you've been betraying isn't as stupid as you thought. And I want you to remember this conversation every time you look at those babies Jennifer's carrying. I stood up, straightening my tie and smoothing my jacket. Oh, and Richard, Jennifer doesn't know I'm here. When she asks, and she will ask, you can tell her that her husband stopped by to discuss the future. I think she'll understand what that means. Richard remained seated behind his desk, staring at the spot where the photographs had been. This isn't over, Tom. You're absolutely right. It's just beginning. I walked out of his office, past Margaret's concerned expression, through the hallway filled with legal minds and important cases, and into the elevator that would take me back to my real world. As the doors closed, I caught a glimpse of Jennifer through the conference room's glass wall, listening intently to a presentation about billable hours and client development. She looked beautiful and professional and completely unaware that her carefully constructed double life was about to collapse around her. In a few minutes, Richard would have to decide whether to tell her about our conversation or try to handle the situation himself. Either way, the comfortable equilibrium they'd established was finished. I drove home through the gray morning, past construction sites and coffee shops and all the ordinary places where ordinary people lived ordinary lives. But I wasn't ordinary anymore. I was a man who'd looked his wife's lover in the eye and explained the new rules of engagement. The game had changed, and this time, I was the one holding all the cards.